We started with a child no one wanted. A child born into silence.
But she's
A
your
child
daughter.
whose cry did not bring joy. A child whose name would one day shake the same house that rejected her. Her name was Maruna. But before the world knew her name, before fate began to move around her small feet, there was a woman who suffered quietly behind closed doors.
Foolish woman,
Indidi.
what are you cooking since morning?
And this
that
is
you're
where
still
her
not
story
done? You
truly
can't do anything
begins.
right.
That morning, Indidi stood alone inside the small room, her back pressed against the wall. The air felt heavy, as if it was watching her. Her hands rested on her stomach, not because she knew anything yet, but because something inside her felt wrong. Or maybe different. She had been feeling weak for days. Her body was tired even after resting. Food no longer tasted the same. Smells she once ignored now made her head spin. But Indidi said nothing. She had learned that silence was safer. The door opened suddenly. "What is wrong with you again?" Indidi flinched. Maduagu stood at the doorway, his face hard, his eyes sharp, like he was searching for something to accuse.
You have been moving like a dying goat
since morning.
Are you sure you are not
Are
paying
you
for
sure
your
you are
crime?
not paying for your crime? Indidi lowered her head. I don't know, she answered quietly. Maduagu laughed without humor. You don't know, he repeated.
You don't know.
For years you don't know.
Other women
carry children like calabash on their backs. But you, nothing. His words hit the same place they always hit. Deep. Indidi swallowed. It is not by my power, she said softly.
Don't open your
Maduagu's
mouth and
face
talk
darkened.
nonsense. If you had
Don't
value,
open your
my
mouth
house
and
would
talk
not be
nonsense,
empty.
he snapped.
Nonsense.
If you had value, my house would not be empty. He turned and walked away, leaving the door open behind him. Indidi stood there for a long time after he left. That was how most of her mornings began. When Indidi first came
Welcome
into
home, my
Maduagu's
beautiful
house, she did not know suffering would become her closest companion. At the beginning, there had been laughter. There had been hope. There had been plans whispered at night. But as months turned into years without a child, everything changed. Words became sharp. Looks became cold. Silence became heavy. Maduagu stopped calling her by name. He stopped sitting near her. He stopped seeing her as a woman. Nothing Indidi did was ever enough. If food burned, she was careless. If food tasted good, she was wasting ingredients.
Add more soup to this plate.
If she spoke, she was disrespectful. If she stayed quiet, she was hiding something. Indidi learned to endure. She endured because she had nowhere else to go. At night, when the house slept, Indidi lay awake and stared at the roof. She counted the cracks. She counted her breaths. She counted the years that had passed without mercy. Sometimes she pressed her hand to her stomach and whispered, "Even one child." No one heard her. One afternoon, as Indidi cooked, the smell of oil rose suddenly. Her stomach twisted violently. She dropped the spoon and rushed outside. She vomited behind the wall. Her knees shook. When she lifted her head, she saw Maduagu watching her. His eyes narrowed. "So now you are vomiting? What again?" Indidi replied, "I still feel unwell."
Every day something new.
Every day something new. He walked away, but the sickness stayed. Days passed. Indidi grew thinner. Her steps became slower. Her heart began to beat with a strange fear she did not want to name. One evening, as Maduagu had gone out, Indidi tied her wrapper tightly and left the compound quietly. She did not tell anyone. At the small clinic, the woman there looked at her carefully. She said, "Sit." Indidi sat. They ran the test. Indidi waited. Her hands shook. When the woman returned, she smiled gently. "You are carrying life." Indidi felt the world tilt. She held the bench to steady herself. Carrying life. After all these years, Tears poured down her face without permission. She laughed and cried at the same time. That night, when Maduagu returned, Indidi stood before him. "I went to check," she said, her voice shaking. "I am pregnant." Maduagu froze. Then slowly his face changed. "So, my house will not remain empty." For the first time in many years, Indidi saw pride in his eyes. But she did not know that joy can be dangerous when it is selective.
When the time came, Indidi labored until her strength nearly left her body. Her voice broke, her tears dried, her breath came in short gasps. Then a cry filled the room. A child! When the baby was placed on her chest, Indidi looked down and whispered, "My child." Outside,
Sir,
Maduagu
it's a
waited.
beautiful
When he
baby
was
girl.
informed it was a daughter,
Useless
his
woman.
face
What was I
hardened.
expecting
He
from her?
turned away. That same
Welcome
night,
home,
he
my
brought in a
beautiful
new
wife.
wife,
I am sure you won't be
Mbanu.
useless like Indidi.
Indidi
Oh,
was
really?
still weak, still bleeding, still holding her newborn child. Pack your things, Maduagu
This house
said
is no
coldly.
longer yours. You
This
will live
house
under
is
the
no
plantain
longer
tree
yours.
from now. If you are still
He
here by
pointed
morning,
toward
I
the
will
trees
throw
behind
you
the
out
compound.
myself.
You will live under the plantain tree from now on. Indidi held her child closer. "If you are still here by morning," he said, "I will throw you out myself." That night, Indidi whispered the child's name for the first time, Maruna. Years later,
We will be
people would
fine,
ask
I
how a
promise you,
girl
my
who
child.
slept under trees rose so high. They would ask how a child
Pack your
rejected
things.
at
This house
birth
is no longer
became
yours.
the
You will
very
live under the
one
plantain tree
destiny
from now. If you are still
protected.
here by morning, I
But
will
they never
throw you
asked
out
what her
myself.
mother endured, and they never imagined that the same child pushed away without pity would one day return with a destiny too heavy for that house to carry. For now, Maruna slept quietly in her mother's arms, and Indidi held her close, not knowing that this small child would grow into the answer to every tear she had ever shed. Morning came quietly, too quietly. Indidi walked before the beds. Her body ached as if it had been beaten all night. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake the child tied to her chest. Maruna slept with her mouth slightly open, breathing softly, unaware that the world had already rejected her. Indidi looked around. There was no roof, no wall, no bed, only the wide leaves of the trees behind the compound, hanging above her like weak hands that could not protect anyone. So it was true. She had truly been pushed out. Indidi stood up slowly. Her legs trembled. She took one step, then another, holding Maruna close, as if letting go would cause her to disappear. From where she stood, she could see the main house clearly. Smoke rose from the kitchen. Life was already moving on without her. She watched as Mbanu came out of the house, tying her wrapper tightly around her waist. Mbanu's steps were confident. Her head was high. Her lips curved slightly, not in a smile, but in something sharper. Mbanu did not look at Indidi, not even once. Behind her, Maduagu stepped out. He stood beside Mbanu like a man who had finally found what he wanted. He laughed at something she said. Indidi turned her face away. That was the moment she understood something deep and painful. She had not been chased away because she did something wrong. She had been chased away because she gave birth to a girl. By afternoon, the sun became hot. Indidi searched the ground behind the compound until she found a place where the trees stood close together. With shaking hands, she gathered fallen leaves, broken sticks and dry grass. A kind neighbor passed by once and dropped 2 old poles beside her without a word. Indidi nodded in thanks. By evening, she had built something that could barely be called a shelter. It leant to one side. The roof had holes. The ground was bare, but it was all she had. That night, rain fell. Cold drops slipped through the leaves and soaked the ground. Indidi sat upright, holding Maruna tightly and turning her back to the rain so the child would stay dry. Her teeth chattered, but she did not cry. Inside the house, laughter floated out. Indidi closed her eyes. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Indidi learned how to survive behind the house. When the sun was too hot, she moved into the shade. When rain fell, she waited it out. When
Please,
hunger
my
came,
child is
she
hungry.
begged
Can you
or
spare
walked.
any food?
Sometimes she washed clothes for neighbors. Sometimes she cleaned compounds.
Do you like the
Sometimes
food,
she went to
Maruna?
sleep hungry.
Yes, Mama, it's very good.
Whenever she tried to enter the main house to ask for food, Mbanu
Please, I
chased
just
her
need some
away.
food.
Go back to where you belong,
This house is not for
Mbanu
people
would
who
say.
bring shame.
This house is not for people who bring shame. Maduagu said nothing. Silence became his answer. Maruna grew slowly. She was thin, but her eyes were bright. She rarely cried. She watched everything. When Indidi walked, Maruna followed. When Indidi walked, Maruna
Almost
sat
done now.
and waited.
Can I help, Mama?
When Indidi
Of
was
course,
tired,
Mama, I brought you
Maruna
water.
brought her
Oh,
water
thank you, my
with
dear.
both hands.
That's refreshing.
You're
One
welcome,
evening,
Mama.
Maruna looked around and asked, Mama, why do we live here? Indidi paused. She looked at the trees, she looked at the ground, she looked at her daughter. This is our home, she said gently. Maruna nodded, though she did not fully understand. When Maruna became old enough for school, Indidi gathered courage and went to Maduagu. She stood before him, her hands folded. Papa Maduagu, she said softly, Maruna is old enough for school. Maduagu looked at her briefly.
So?
He
She
asked.
is your child.
She's
That
your
girl?
child, Indidi replied. Maduagu laughed. That girl, he said.
If you want her to
her
learn letters,
learn letters,
pay for it yourself. After all, she will
After
end up
all,
in another
she will
man's
end up
kitchen
in
just
another
like
man's
yourself.
kitchen just like yourself. Indidi nodded and walked away. That night, she cried quietly so Maruna would not hear. A year later, Mbanu gave birth to a boy. His name was Zikena. That
Our
day,
baby
the
boy is
compound
here.
shook
He
with
is
celebration.
perfect.
Thank you,
A
everyone.
goat was
The whole
slaughtered,
village celebrates.
music played, neighbors danced. Maduagu carried the boy proudly and lifted him high. This is my son, he said loudly. Indidi watched from a distance, Maruna holding her hand. Inside the main house, Mbaru's son grew like a king's child. When Zikena cried, everyone moved. When Zikena pointed, someone obeyed. When Zikena asked, the answer was never no. As a small child, Zikena never walked far. He was carried. If he threw away one plate, another was brought. If he broke something, nobody scolded him. Leave him, Maduagu would say. He is a boy. Zikena had everything. Sometimes, when Maduagu did not even have the money, he still found a way. He borrowed. He borrowed from friends, he borrowed from traders, he borrowed from men who charged interest. All for my son, he would say proudly. When it was time for school, Maduagu did not ask questions. Private school, better uniforms, extra books. If the fees increased, he paid. If the school asked for more, he borrowed again. Meanwhile, behind the house, Maruna watched everything. She watched Zikena eat meat while she ate plain food, gari and watery soup. She watched him wear new clothes while hers were patched. She watched him carry books while she waited. She never complained. She never asked why. She only watched. And inside her young heart, something quiet was growing. Not anger, not jealousy, but understanding. She was learning very early that some children were raised to be given everything and others were raised to survive without asking. Years passed. Indidi worked harder. Her hands grew rough. Her back bent early. Marina helped her mother sell small things at the market. Pepper, groundnuts, firewood. Sometimes they sold everything. Sometimes they sold nothing. When Marina turned 14 years old, she fell very sick. She lay on the mat under the trees, her body burning with fever. Her voice was weak. "Mama," she whispered. Indidi ran to Maduagu and knelt. "Please," she begged. "Maruna is sick. Help me." Maduagu frowned as he counted the bundles of money he was about to give Mbanu for their son's needs. So now you remember me, he said, not even bothering to look up for a moment. "Take her to where you got her from," he said harshly.
That child is not mine.
Is
She
not
will
mine.
die.
child is not
Indidi
mine.
cried.
She will die.
She will die. Madragun turned away. Indidi ran
Please
to a
help me.
neighbor's
My
house
daughter
and
is very
borrowed a
sick.
little money
She
with
needs
tears in
medicine
her
right
eyes.
away.
Maruna survived, but the sickness left her weak for a long time. When Maruna turned 18, she stopped going to school completely. Indidi could no longer afford the fees. One evening, as they sat under the trees, Maruna spoke. "Mama," she said quietly,
Mama,
I want to
I
leave."
want to leave.
Indidi's heart skipped.
I want to go far.
"Leave?" she asked.
I want to work.
"Where?"
I want to help you.
"I want to go far," Maruna replied. "I want to work. I want to help you." Indidi shook her head.
It is dangerous, and you already helped me sell enough.
she whispered. Maruna held her
Sell
hand.
enough.
I
"I
will
will
come back for you. I
Maruna
promise,
assured
Mama.
her. "I promise, Mama." That night, Indidi could not sleep. She stared into the darkness, listening to the wind move through the trees. She did not know that this decision, this single sentence, was about to open a door that could either save her daughter or destroy her completely. Indidi woke up when she felt Naruna's hand gently touch her shoulder. "Mama," Maruna whispered. Indidi sat up slowly. Her heart was already heavy, as if it knew what was coming. She looked at her daughter's face in the weak light. Maruna looked calm, but her eyes were deep and serious. Too serious for a young girl. Indidi reached out and held her hands. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. Maruna nodded. "I cannot stay here and watch you suffer anymore. I want to help you." Indidi opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. She pulled Maruna into her arms and held her tightly. "Be careful," she whispered. "Remember who you are. Remember where you come from." Maruna nodded again. Those were the same words Indidi had once spoken in her heart when she was young and hopeful. Hearing them now frightened her more than silence would have. The money Maruna carried was small, too small for a big journey. Indidi had gone from house to house, begging quietly. Some neighbors gave a little, some turned their backs, some said they had nothing. Indidi tied the money carefully in a cloth and placed it in Maruna's bag. "This is all I have," she said softly. "It is more than enough, Mama. Thank you," Maruna replied as she hugged her mother tightly. They walked together to the roadside. When the bus arrived, it was already full of noise, voices shouting, bags being thrown, people pushing. Maruna climbed in. She looked back once. Indidi stood still, waving with a hand that shook. Then the bus moved, and Maruna was gone.
The road was long. The bus shook and rattled as it moved. People argued. People laughed. People slept. Maruna sat quietly, holding her small bag close to her chest. She watched villages turn into towns, and towns turn into something bigger. Her heart beat faster with every mile. When the bus finally stopped, the noise hit her first. Cars, voices, shouting, movement everywhere. This was not like home. This was not like anything she had known. This was the city. Maruna stepped down carefully, her eyes wide. People rushed past her as if she was invisible. Someone pushed her shoulder. Another stepped on her foot. She held her bag tighter. Before she could even find a place to sit, 2 young men brushed past her. "Sorry," one said quickly. Maruna nodded. Then her heart dropped. Her bag felt light, too light. She opened it quickly. The money was gone. Her clothes were gone. Everything was gone. Maruna stood there, frozen. For a long moment, she did not move. She looked around as if the bag might appear again if she stared hard enough. It did not. Her knees grew weak. She sat down slowly by the roadside. That was when she cried. Maruna slept on bare concrete that night. The building had no doors, no windows, no roof to fully cover her head. It was an uncompleted building, abandoned and forgotten, standing quietly among taller houses that had moved on without it. Maruna curled herself into a small corner. She hugged her knees to her chest and rested her head on them, trying to make herself smaller, trying to disappear into the darkness. Her stomach ached. Hunger burned inside her like a slow fire that would not go out. She was afraid to sleep. Every sound made her flinch. Footsteps passed outside. A distant shout echoed through the night. She pressed her back harder against the wall. This was not how she imagined her first night away from home. The days that followed were long and cruel. Maruna walked until her legs hurt. She asked quietly for help. Some people ignored her completely, walking past as if she did not exist. Some looked at her and shook their heads. Others insulted her. At last, a woman stopped in front of her. She looked Maruna up and down, then dropped a piece of bread on the ground.
Take it.
Take it, she said, without kindness. Maruna bent down slowly. She brushed the dust away with her fingers and ate the bread quietly, standing by the roadside. She did not complain. She did not cry. As evening came, her body began to fail her. Her legs trembled when she stood too long. Her head felt light. Her stomach twisted painfully. She was alone. Maruna closed her eyes and she thought of her mother. She thought of the trees behind the house. She thought of home. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But as she lay there on the cold floor of that abandoned building, one truth pressed heavily on her heart. The city had not welcomed her. The next morning, Maruna woke up. Her legs felt weak, like they did not belong to her anymore. Hunger burned inside her stomach, sharper than the night before. She pressed her hand against it and swallowed hard. "I must not fail," she whispered to herself. She stepped out of the building. People were already moving fast, as if they were late for something important. No one noticed her. She walked, street after street. She watched people open shops. She watched food being cooked. The smell of fried things filled the air and made her head spin. Her mouth filled with saliva, but she forced herself to keep walking. Each place she went to for a job, they all rejected her because of how frail she looked. Each time, the answer was the same. No work. Go away. Come back with an adult. By midday, the sun was hot. Maruna sat on the edge of a gutter and rested her head on her knees. Her eyes burned. Her body felt empty. She remembered her mother's words. Remember who you are. She closed her eyes for a moment and breathed slowly. And that was the exact moment she saw an old woman standing nearby.
The old woman looked confused. Her clothes were neat but simple. A small handbag hung loosely from her arm. But something was wrong. The woman kept turning slowly, looking left, then right, as if she was searching for something that refused to appear. She took a step forward, then stopped suddenly and held her head. Her face was pale and her lips were dry. Maruna slowed her steps. At first, she wanted to walk past. Everyone else was doing that. People rushed by, boarding buses, shouting directions, arguing over transport fares. No one looked at the woman twice. The woman swayed. Her knees bent slightly. Before Maruna could think, she moved. "Mama," Maruna said softly, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" The woman did not answer immediately. She blinked several times, as if trying to focus. I don't know," she said slowly. "My head is turning." She took another step and nearly fell. Maruna caught her just in time. "Please," Maruna said quickly, "sit down." She guided the woman to a low concrete edge near the bus stop and helped her sit.
The woman's body felt light, almost fragile, like she had not eaten well in days. Maruna looked around. "Please, do you have water?" she asked nearby traders. No one answered. She did not stop trying. Finally, a man nearby pushed a small sachet of water toward her. Maruna thanked him quickly and knelt in front of the woman. "Take small," she said gently. The woman drank slowly. Her hands were shaking. Maruna fanned her lightly with her hand. She stayed close, watching her face carefully, just like she had watched her mother many times under the trees. After a while, the woman's breathing became steadier. She looked at Maruna more clearly now. "Thank you," she said. "My name is Mrs. Adimi." "I'm Maruna," she replied. When Mrs. Adimi felt better, Maruna stepped back. "Ma," she said politely, "you are stronger now. I will start going." Mrs. Adimi looked at her. "Going where?" she asked. Maruna hesitated. "I don't really have a place. I arrived few days ago from the village," she said softly. Mrs. Ademi was quiet for a moment. Then she asked calmly, "Why not stay with me?" Maruna looked up surprised. "I live not far from here," Mrs. Ademi continued. "I sell akara by the roadside every morning. It's not much, but at least it pays the bill." She smiled faintly. "Would you like to stay with me and follow me to sell akara?" Maruna's eyes widened. "Really?" she asked. "Yes," Mrs. Ademi said. "You will help me and you will have a place to stay." Maruna did not think twice. "Yes, Mama," she said quickly, her voice full of relief. They walked together to Mrs. Ademi's house. The house was simple. Not big, not small, just clean and quiet. That evening, Mrs. Ademi showed Maruna a small room. "There," she said, "you can sleep here." Maruna stepped inside. There was a bed, a real bed, with a clean mattress. That night, Maruna slept on a comfortable bed in a quiet room. For the first time since she left home, she slept deeply. Maruna woke up before the sun. She sat up slowly on the bed and looked around the small room. It was quiet, it was clean, it was safe. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then she remembered everything. Maruna stood up quickly and stepped out of the room. Mrs. Ademi was already awake. She stood in the small kitchen, gently turning akara inside hot oil. The smell filled the house, warm and comforting. Maruna felt her stomach relax. "Good morning, Mama," Maruna said. Mrs. Ademi canned and smiled. "You woke early. That is good." Maruna nodded. "I want to help." Mrs. Ademi showed her what to do. How to mix the beans, how to turn the akara gently so it would not burn, how to pack them neatly. When the sky grew lighter, they carried the tray to the roadside. Mrs. Ademi sat on her small stool. Maruna stood beside her. People passed, some bought, some greeted, some joked. Maruna watched carefully. By midday, they returned home. Maruna swept the house, she washed plates, she fetched water. Mrs. Ademi rested often. Sometimes she pressed her hand to her chest. Sometimes she sat quietly for long minutes staring at nothing. "Mama, are you okay?" Maruna would ask. "I am fine," Mrs. Ademi would reply. "Just tired." Days passed. Weeks passed. Maruna followed Mrs. Ademi every morning to sell akara. In the afternoon, she cooked simple meals. In the evening, she listened as Mrs. Ademi talked about small things, neighbors, old memories, quiet regrets. At night, Maruna slept peacefully. The house no longer felt empty. Mrs. Ademi laughed more. She ate better. She called Maruna's name often. "My daughter," she said one evening without thinking. Maruna's chest tightened. She had not been called that in a long time.
Far
Zikena,
away
you
in
stopped coming home
Maduagu's
early. What
compound,
is this?
things were
Mama
not
was just
peaceful.
out.
Your mother
Zikena was
is
no
talking
longer
to
the
you.
boy
This is
everyone
not
praised.
you.
To
He
you.
stopped
This
coming
is
home
not
early.
you.
He missed school. He
But
argued
I
with
didn't
his
do
father.
anything wrong.
You were out
Leave
late again.
him,
This is
Banu
unacceptable.
said at
Leave him,
first.
Banu. He's
still
He
young.
needs to learn.
But Zikena grew worse. He followed bad boys. He demanded money.
No,
He
I can't.
shouted
You
when he
always
was
give me what I want.
refused.
Not this time. This is
Maduago began
Maduago,
to
calm
worry.
down.
The son he spoiled now brought him shame. Back in the city, Maruna continued to care for Mrs. Adeyemi. She washed her clothes, she helped her walk when her legs felt weak, she stayed awake when Mrs. Adeyemi could not sleep. One night, Mrs. Adeyemi held Maruna's hand. "If anything happens to me," she said softly, "remember that you are a good child." Maruna shook her head quickly. "Nothing will happen to you, Mama," she said. Mrs. Adeyemi smiled faintly, but her hand felt cold. Mrs. Adeyemi did not wake up that morning. Maruna noticed it first because the house was too quiet. There was no sound from the kitchen, no smell of akara oil, no soft movement of footsteps. "Mama?" Maruna called gently as she stepped toward the room. There was no answer. Her heart began to beat fast. She knocked lightly and pushed the door open. Mrs. Adeyemi lay on the bed, her face calm, her eyes closed, as if she was only resting. One hand rested on her chest, the other lay by her side. "Mama," Maruna whispered again, moving closer. She touched her hand. It was cold. Maruna froze. For a long moment, she stood there, unable to cry, unable to speak. Then the truth slowly entered her heart. Mrs. Adeyemi was gone. Maruna screamed. Neighbors rushed in. People gathered. Someone sent for the authorities. Everything that followed felt like a dream Maruna could not wake from. Mrs. Adeyemi was buried quietly. Maruna cried as if she had lost her own mother. Just when she thought life was beginning to be kind to her, this happened. After the burial, Maruna returned to the small house alone. The room felt empty again. She packed her few clothes and prepared to leave. She did not know where she would go next, but she knew she could not stay. That was when a letter arrived. It came in a brown envelope with Maruna's name written clearly on it. She stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a letter from a lawyer. Her hands trembled as she read. Mrs. Adeyemi had left everything she owned to Maruna. Everything.
The house, the properties Maruna didn't even know existed, and the savings, all of it had been left to her. Mrs. Adeyemi had been a rich woman, lonely and sick. She did not need to sell akara, but she chose to, so she could meet people and talk to someone every day. Maruna sat down slowly. Her head spun. She had never known. She had never guessed. Mrs. Adeyemi had never said a word. Maruna cried again, but this time the tears were mixed with shock, gratitude, and deep sorrow. She folded the letter slowly and pressed it to her chest. Maruna sat there for a long time, saying nothing. Maruna did not return to the village immediately. She stayed in the city for a while, settling the matters Mrs. Adeyemi had left behind. It was during this time that she slowly began to understand the weight of what had been handed to her. Not through sudden luxury, but through quiet discoveries. Documents that carried her name, signatures she did not recognize, responsibilities she had never imagined. When everything was finally arranged, she thought of only one thing: her mother. The journey back felt longer than before, not because of distance, but because her heart was full. When she arrived at the
that
compound,
Maruna?
she did not announce herself. She walked in quietly, just as she always had. Indidi was behind the house, sweeping the same ground she had swept for years. She did not hear the footsteps at first. It was when the shadow fell across the broom that she looked up. For a moment, she stared, unsure of what her eyes were seeing. The girl standing there looked older, stronger, fuller, yet the eyes were the same. "Maruna," Indidi said slowly, as if saying it too loudly might break the moment. Maruna stepped forward. Mama. Indidi dropped the broom without knowing she had done so. She walked forward, then stopped, then moved again, her hands trembling. When she finally touched Maruna's face, her knees weakened. You came back,
Is this
she
really
whispered.
you, Maruna?
Maruna held
Yes,
her
Mama,
tightly.
it's me. I
Indidi
came back
cried
as
into her
promised.
shoulder, the kind of cry that came from years of holding everything inside. Maruna said nothing. She only held her and let the tears come. That evening, as they sat together, word reached the house. Zikena had been taken to the police station. He had
You
been
were caught
caught
stealing.
stealing
What were
along
you
with boys who
thinking?
had no direction
Stealing
and
is
no
wrong,
fear.
son. You know
The
better.
news did not come as
You
a
will
shock
make
to
this
Maduago.
right.
It came as confirmation of what he had already been watching unfold. The son he had protected from consequences had grown into someone he could no longer control. Maruna heard the news quietly. She did not comment. She did not gloat. Her attention remained on her mother. That night, she told Indidi she would not be staying. You are coming with me, she said simply. Indidi did not argue. For the first time, leaving did not feel like being chased away. Months later, on a hot afternoon, Maruna was called from the gate. When she stepped outside, she saw her father, Papa Maduagu. He did not come with pride or excuses. He came alone. When he stood before Maruna, his shoulders were bent in a way they had never been before. He spoke slowly, carefully, as if every word mattered. I was wrong,
I was
he
wrong.
said.
I
failed
failed you.
Maruna listened. She did not interrupt him. She did not raise her voice. When he finished, she nodded once. I forgive you, Papa, she said. But forgiveness did not mean returning. She kept her distance,
Your
and
daughter
Maduago
sent you
understood that some things, once broken, do not return to their former shape.
I built you a
Life
proper
moved
house,
forward.
Mama.
Maruna built
my
a
dear,
proper
I'm so
home for
proud.
Indidi and opened a supermarket in her name. They both lived a quiet and steady life. She met a man who did not speak with anger and did not measure love by control. With him, she learned a different kind of life. When she later held her own child, she understood something without having to name it. What had begun under trees had ended in shelter. What had grown in hunger had learned fullness. And what had survived cruelty had chosen gentleness. The story did not end loudly. It simply continued, better than before. And the child
Here,
who was
Grandma,
once
your
rejected for being
turn.
a girl
Oh, my
proved that
sweet
success in
angel.
life does
A
not depend
perfect
on
moment.
gender.
So
Every
precious.
child deserves equal love and care. Moral of the story: kindness
See?
has the
They're puffing
power
up
to
so
change
nicely.
lives.
They look
Maruna
perfect,
showed
Grandma.
kindness even
Of
when
course
she
they
had
do.
nothing, and that kindness opened doors
Is that
she
Maruna?
never expected. When we choose to help others without looking for reward, goodness
Hey, yeah,
finds
I'm
its
just
way
walking
back
around
to
the
us.
living room.
A
The
kind
light in
heart,
here
no
is
matter how
amazing
small or
today.
unnoticed,
Talk soon,
can
bye.
shape a better future.